let me say something that might make you feel uncomfortable, because a lot of you actually don't even know yourself. And I don't mean that in a harsh way. I mean that in the realest way possible. You know how to survive, you know how to show up, you know how to keep things moving. But knowing yourself, that requires a level of honesty that most people avoid. But the truth is, sometimes it's easier to stay distracted than to actually sit with yourself. And I know that, girlies, because I have lived it myself. If you are in your healing era, doing the inner work, setting boundaries, unlearning patterns, then this series is for you. This is Becoming Her, a weekly series based on my book, The Healing Hearts Club, The Feminine Guide to Success. Each episode is designed to take you one step closer to becoming her. And today's episode is one of the most important: understanding who you are, because you cannot build a life that feels right if you don't even understand yourself. And understanding yourself begins with honesty, but not surface level honesty. I'm talking about the deep, the nitty gritty, the uncomfortable, rip it, strip it all back honesty. The kind where you stop distracting yourself and actually sit with the truth. Because denial feels like relief in the moment, but really all it is just a painkiller. Numbs things just enough for you to carry on, but it doesn't heal anything. And I've been there myself, telling myself, it's not that deep. Telling myself I'm fine, I'll deal with it later. But later always comes. It always comes, no matter how long you put it off. And when it comes heavier. What you avoid does not disappear, it just accumulates. Over time, that shows up as anxiety, as burnout, as emotional distance, frustration that you can't even explain. The worst part is that you don't even realize that it's connected to what you avoided. I remember a time in my life where I just felt off. I was not myself at all. Nothing was drastically wrong, but I did not feel like myself. I was tired in a way that sleep did not fit. I was irritated by things that never even used to bother me. And the thing is, I had to sit back and I had to ask myself, what am I not facing? And that is the question that changed everything. And this is exactly why I wrote my book in the first place. Because I realized that so many women are living like this, carrying things that you've never even processed, trying to move forward without ever looking back. Now let's talk about something even more uncomfortable: our flaws. And I want to reframe that word straight away, because flaws are not failures, they are information. They show you where you need healing. They show you where you need growth. But most of us were never taught how to look at ourselves without judgment. So what do? We criticize ourselves, we overthink, we compare, we try to fix everything overnight. But here is actually the truth. A lot of your self-criticism didn't even start with you. It came from being compared as a child, from not feeling enough, being judged in moments where you needed support. And those experiences, they don't disappear. They start to become your internal voice. So now every time you make a mistake, every time you feel uncertain, that voice shows up. And instead of taking the time to understand yourself, you attack yourself. Baby girl, stop doing that. I used to do this a lot. I judged myself. I overthought something. I'd get frustrated with myself. I didn't feel confident. I'd question myself. And you know what? Sometimes I still do. But I've learned this. You cannot heal yourself by being harsh to yourself. So instead of criticizing myself, I pause and I ask myself, what part of me needs understanding right now? And that shift from judgment to curiosity is where the healing begins. And the thing is, I want you to understand this on a much deeper level, because this isn't just emotional, it's actually biology. When you constantly criticize yourself, your brain doesn't understand the difference between that and actual danger. So it activates your stress response and cortisol increases. Your body becomes tense. Your mind becomes reactive. You stay in survival mode. But when you practice self-acceptance, you calm your nervous system. Your brain shifts out of defense mode and into clarity. And this is where your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision making, actually works properly. which means you think better, you respond better, and you feel more in control. And I do break this down a lot deeper in the book, because when you understand how your mind works, you stop fighting yourself and you start working with yourself. Now, let's talk about the other side of self-awareness, and that is your strengths. And this is where a lot of women also struggle, because we've been conditioned to be humble, to downplay ourselves, to focus on what we lack. But let me say this clearly, that recognizing your strengths is not arrogance. It's alignment. It's awareness. It is truth, because you do have strengths, even if you always don't see them. Your resilience, your emotional depth, your ability to keep going when things are hard, that matters. And when you start focusing on your strength, something internally shifts. Your brain releases dopamine. You feel more motivated, more capable, more grounded. And that energy changes how you show up in your life, because the relationship that you have with yourself sets the tone for everything else, baby girl. A woman that knows herself moves differently. She doesn't settle for less because she doesn't feel less. I didn't always feel like that. I'm not going to say like it's going to happen overnight. It is a process. There were times when I accepted things that I shouldn't have. Not because I didn't know better, but because I didn't fully feel my worth. And that's the difference. Knowing something logically and embodying it emotionally. Two different things. But when you truly understand yourself, that changes. You stop chasing validation. You stop shrinking. You stop settling, because you realize that you are enough as you are, even whilst you're still growing. Now, let's talk about the most powerful part of this all, girl. Authenticity. Being unapologetically yourself. And I'm going to be honest. This is one of the hardest parts of the journey, because a lot of us have learned to adapt, to fit in, to be accepted, to be liked. I've done it too. Changing how I speak, holding back my thoughts, adjusting myself depending on who I'm around. People please much, and it's exhausting. It is. Because when your outer self does not match your inner self, you feel disconnected over time. And that disconnect, it turns into resentment, it turns into confusion, self-doubt. When you choose authenticity, even though it's uncomfortable at first, it becomes freeing, because you're no longer performing. You're just being. That is where your real power is. When you bring everything together, honesty, self-acceptance, self-awareness, strength, authenticity, you step into real self-love, and not just the aesthetic version. Grounded, unshakable version. Where you trust yourself, where you understand yourself, where you don't abandon yourself. And that's when everything changes. And I went on this journey and I wrote this book because I wanted women like myself, like other women all over the world, to stop feeling disconnected from themselves. And I want us to all start understanding ourselves on a much deeper level. And if this episode resonates with you, then girlies, please do not forget to like and subscribe. I've also linked my book in the description, because it might be exactly what you need right now. But before you go, girls, I want you to sit with this. Ask yourself, what am I avoiding about myself right now? Because your healing starts there. See you next week. And don't forget to tune in next week for episode 3 of Becoming Her.